Hello, everyone. Those of us who joined the excursion yesterday actually learned quite a lot about the large carnivores in Slovenia. We have also learned that the large carnivores in Slovenia are the bear, the brown bear, wolf, and the lynx, whereas elsewhere in the world, of course, also other species or also other large carnivores live. Which actually are the large carnivores? Those are the carnivores who eat animals larger than themselves. That was also very well explained yesterday. Well, in this lecture, I will focus on the attitudes towards the large carnivores in Slovenia, towards wolf, the bear, and the lynx, as already mentioned. First, I would like to shortly go through the historical development of the protection and not non-protection of the large carnivores in the in what is today's Slovenia, actually. Okay. Well, the settlement of Slovenia from the Middle Ages to the early 17th century brought deforestation and thus also the conflicts between large carnivores and humans. Large carnivores were considered harmful and even bounties were paid for their killing. Until the mid-19th century, they were hunted year-round, not only by hunters, but actually by anyone who had the time and will to do so. At the end of the 19th century, that actually brought them to the brink of survival. By the end of the 19th century, actually the lynx had been completely exterminated, and the natural habitat of the wolf and bear had been reduced only to the forests of the central and southern Slovenia, mostly known as the Kočevska or Gottschee region today. It was only then that the first small-scale measures were actually taken. The lucky one among the carnivores who was protected first was the brown bear. In 1889, the Duke Auersperg protected the brown bear in the Kočevska region. This Auersperg's active bear protection, as well as his preservation of the primeval forests in the area, actually stands out in Europe and as well in the world of that time, where the bear and the wolf were actually on their way to extinction. So the collapse of Austro-Hungarian Empire brought changes again, not in a good way, unfortunately. Bear hunting was allowed again, and in 1923, even the Committee for the Killing of Wolves had been established. So you can imagine what the situation was like. But then in 1935, there was the first initiative of the local hunters of the Kočevska area. I'm going to mention this area quite a lot of times during this lecture. And later I will also tell you why, explain that in more details. Well, in 1935, the brown bear was officially protected in Dravska Banovina administrative unit of Kingdom of Yugoslavia. And that Dravska Banovina actually covered most parts of the present-day Slovenia. Well, however, the new legislation passed in 1966, which was a step backward, as bears were then allowed to be hunted year-round again. and the wolf fared even worse, as only in times when it was really rare did individual hunting associations agree to stop hunting it. So, but finally in 1973, bounties for killed wolves were discontinued, and in Gojitveno lovišče Medved, that's actually the place where the Hunting Association of Kočevje is in charge of this, the area. Well, they even self-initiated the first wolf protection by the local Hunters Association in that area. So they protected the bear in their region, but it was not the wolf in their region, but it was not protected in the whole Slovenia. In 1973, even the lynx, which was extincted at the end of the 19th century, was reintroduced to Slovenia. And it was actually the times when also the legislation for the protection of large carnivores has gradually started to change. Bear, wolf, and lynx have been protected since officially protected on the whole territory of the country, actually since 1993. And interventions in their populations require special permission, or every year permission from the relevant ministry. But of course, there are always conflicting views among various political actors about hunting the individual species. So what is the situation like today? Around the world, especially in Europe, we are facing the increase in numbers of the large carnivores, while the estimated number of them in Europe is actually about 17,000 wolves, about 16,000 brown bears, and about 9,000 lynx. So where does Slovenia stand in this picture? We have about 1,100 bears, 120 wolves, and at least 30 lynx. The number of lynx is not easy to determine, since they are really very cautious, and they avoid people even more than the previous two. So we like to compare ourselves to our neighbors, and I was wondering how Austria is actually doing. And it was quite a surprise, because well, Austria is northern from Slovenia, actually, and we share the northern border. While we have about 1,000 bears, they only have 2 to 3. So it's quite a difference, and it surprises me very much, actually. They have 45 wolves and about the same number of lynx as we do. Yeah, as you can see, well, the attitudes towards the large carnivores were through the past were particularly negative, with some of the positive changes that happened throughout the centuries, especially in the 20th century, when they were finally protected around Europe. What determines the attitudes towards the large carnivores? I guess we all know. What's the main reason for them to bring to nearly to extinction? Well, actually, it's the fear. Yeah, the fear. In the case of a wolf, for example, the hatred of the wolf was based primarily on the competition that the wolf posed to the humans, firstly for food, by hunting the wild animals, and later also by attacking domestic animals. Especially livestock farmers, for example, fear losing their livestock, and thus also their income. The fear of the wolf obviously often stems from the stereotypical image of this animal as a dangerous beast, such as the one we know from the folk tales, like the Little Red Riding Hood and similar ones. But what I think mostly affects the attitude towards not only the wolf, but the large carnivores and the animals in general is actually the media. Well, a couple of months ago, we have witnessed the escalation of fear among the people in Slovenia, especially in the northern part around Bled, where a wolf recently killed some sheep. And people, for example, told journalists that they do not dare to leave their children outside alone because they fear the wolf so much. And here you can see some of the articles that were published at that time. The first one is actually entitled "The Horror Film in Front of the House," of the home, or something like that. And the other one, "New bloodthirsty attack in the Gorenska region," and stuff like that. So you can sense the feel that these publications actually give to the locals where these things happened. This fear, of course, is unjustified because no wolf attack on humans has been recorded in Slovenia in the last 100 years. Well, the image of the wolf and the large carnivores in general, and the fear itself can, of course, be influenced by education about the benefits and the necessity of the carnivores' protection, and about the fact that carnivores are not a real threat to humans. Various international projects conducted by the Faculty of Biotechnology. I'm sorry, colleagues, if I translated that wrong, but I hope everybody understands. Well, actually, the University of Ljubljana, in cooperation with some of the neighboring countries, show that attitudes towards large carnivores are improving. However, they also note that the negative public attitudes towards especially the wolves are reinforced by this sensational news in the media, which actually directly reduces public tolerance and increases the fear of the large carnivores. Attitudes towards the bears are actually slightly better as towards the wolf. In folklore, bears are depicted as grumpy, kind, even sometimes stupid, or as in the widely spread folk tale in Slovenia, Hvaležni medved, grateful, for example. I also looked at some of the recent posts about bears on two of the largest online Slovenian media portals, and was again surprised that the coverage was actually mostly positive. I don't even know what to think about it. Sometimes it's actually hilarious. For example, Gema the bear steals a cake from the hotel and eats it. That's one of the titles. Then again, a bear cub was having fun in the snow. Then also about the fattest bear in Alaska. The fattest bear is a 747. He is so fat that his belly slides on the ground. So we can see this actually, I don't know, funny, hilarious, whatever titles, which were actually prevailing in the past year. But of course, you cannot only spot the titles or the articles like that, but also a very negative articles about the numbers of the bears and the large carnivores in general. Anyway, the attitude towards the bears is much better than the attitude towards the wolves. But until when? Until the bear gets out of the forests. So until it's like safely placed in his home, until people don't really see it. Well, the support for the bears stays quite high, but when the bear comes out of the forest, the fear actually appears again, and the situation is completely turned around. So two of the Facebook posts from the two municipalities near Ljubljana, where they are not really used to living with the bears. For example, Občina Škofljica issued this warning when the first bear, after I don't know how many years, actually appeared in their municipality. So they warned all of the inhabitants to be careful and to take the security measures. That's the direct translation of that. And also, for example, in the Kamnik region, Velika Planina, they were warning the inhabitants of the dangerous bear who actually was attacking their livestock, and so on. But there is one exemption to that, actually. The exception is the Kočevje or Kočevska region in south of Slovenia, where I also live, and which is known for its extensive forests, and of course also for the large carnivores. The bear in Kočevska region is actually perceived by the inhabitants as the most distinctive element of the local identity. In Kočevje or the whole region as a whole, you can encounter bear images practically at every turn. So, for example, there is a life-size statue right at the entrance of the Kočevje, the city of Kočevje, which is the main or the only city actually in that region. Then we have a pastry shop called Medo or a bear, also Medved Bear Sports Club. We have also annual massive hike through the forests of the area, which is also called In the Bear's Footsteps. And in addition, many clubs and local businesses use the bear as the emblem. In the photos, you can actually see some of the many souvenirs that in the shape of the bear that you are able to actually buy in that region. So why this bear mania in the region? Well, partly because the area actually faced quite tragical historical events during and after the Second World War. The most tragic one was the resettlement of the majority of the population, the so-called Gottschee Germans, to what was then the German Reich. And after that, their resettlement, the area was actually completely emptied, and it was taken over by the forest. So all of the villages that were previously populated suddenly were not, and still aren't. So the deforestation of the area during the war was about 40%, and nowadays it's about 80%. So after the war, the new inhabitants from different regions of Slovenia and even from other countries of Yugoslavian countries actually found their new places in this region, and sort of needed something to identify with, because they were migrants from all over. They had no connection with the local past. They didn't know much about it, about, I don't know, mythology, well, actually tangible and intangible cultural heritage, if I put it so. And that's why they identified with one of the things that were already there, and that was actually very obvious, and it was the forest. The area is actually has built its tourist offer on the virgin or pristine forests. This is the first picture, and of course the second one connected with the first one are the carnivores, and especially the bear. So the bear has become a symbol, and we are quite very well aware of the importance of the protection of the bear and the nature as well in general. Of course, there are several deviations, but in general, I think that is the fact. So what happened there? In the past couple of years, I noticed that these sensational media articles or publishings or whatever don't really get to the inhabitants of the Kočevska region, and actually they started to actually make fun of this of such articles. For example, one of the rock bands from the area published on their Facebook site this special first-hand notice. On the forest path in the direction of Brunarica, that's a favorite bar actually, near the forest, near the spring in Dolga Vas, at 8:40 a.m., I saw with my own eyes a bear slouching towards the water, probably thirsty. Quite big, well-fed, lively. So you see that they are actually making fun of the media of the way media is actually protecting this the threat of the large carnivores. Well, there is the second case. For example, the local newspaper Utrip published a short article about the bear that was spotted by the pig farm in one of the villages, and then the comments were mostly like, so what if he had been seen? And then you should fear the tick instead. And then perhaps he was counting the pigs, so making fun. Such a fuss about the bear. What would have been if they spotted a crocodile? So you can see the situation is quite different than in the rest of the country. However, there is one case where even in the national level, there was like a positive attitude of the broader public as well as the media towards a wolf. In case of this wolf called Slouts, there was actually a complete turnaround in media coverage, and it actually stands out as an example of how anthropomorphism can be used to go beyond the stereotyping of the wolf. And it is also a very good example of how scientists have actually managed to fool around, so to say, the media to actually spread the positive image of the wolf. Well, in 2011, Slouts, a wolf from the Slovenian-Croatian pack, was fitted with a telemetry collar that tracked his movements for a year as part of the Slow Wolf International Project. Well, researchers found out that he had left his natal pack, traveled to Croatia, returned to Slovenia, traveled north to Austria, crossed Austria and the Italian Alps, and then finally settled near Verona, where he also met a female wolf with whom he started a family in 2013. The Italian media, of course, named this female Julia. And the story of Slouts and Julia was first published in the Italian, then in Austrian, and latest in Slovenian media. Well, in Slovenia, we could actually follow Slouts' journey on his blog, which unfortunately is no longer available. And Slouts and Julia are actually responsible for the fact that today, after 130 years, there are 50 wolf families in the Eastern Alps. And also 2 of the Slouts' sons have even returned back to Slovenia. As already said, the media coverage of sloughs were extremely favorable and positive, almost without an exception. They attributed human qualities to this wolf. Moreover, Slouts is actually portrayed as a hero. In the reports about him, one can find the structure of the heroic myth, in which the hero sets out on a journey, encounters various obstacles or enemies, overcomes them, and finally returns home from the journey endowed with some supernatural powers or otherwise rewarded. In the case of the Slouts, with his new family. Slouts was present in Slovenian media for until his death, so quite some years. He was last seen in August 2022. While Julia died only about a half year ago. They had lived together for 10 years. Just to give you a few examples of the titles of the articles that actually covered the Slouts' journey. For example, Slouts, the Slovenian wolf, we actually nationalized him, is a true traveler. And then Slouts, the wolf, found love in Verona. Slouts, the Slovenian wolf, and his mate Julia survived the winter and had a litter. And then at the end of his path, also in some sort of an obituary, the legendary wolf Slouts dies. However, Wolf Slouts has not only remained a media star, but he also became the hero of a children's book. For example, as my colleagues told me a couple of days ago, there has actually been the second book about him published recently, and he is also a protagonist of the documentary film that was filmed in 2022, where he, Sons of the Burja Wind, I don't know how to translate that correctly, but how? Okay. Well, in this film, he interestingly appears alongside an also endangered shepherd, kind of a shepherd dog called Krashki Ochar. Okay, so to conclude, actually, is there anything else to be done to change the attitude towards the large carnivores and animals in general? Yes, of course it is. Well, is that possible? I think it is. I think it is with the cooperation, as the previous example shows us, with the cooperation of scientists, educational system, and especially the media. Thank you.